President Truman arrives at the submarine base at Groton, Connecticut to dedicate the Nautilus, the world's first atomic-powered submarine. 5 years in the planning, the Nautilus may be in action next year. She'll be able to cross oceans on a few pounds of uranium without surfacing. As he puts his initials on a curved steel shell in the sub's bottom, the President stresses that the Nautilus anticipates the peacetime, everyday use of atomic power.
So in Washington, before the Women's National Democratic Club, the President himself has something to say about the election. Truman, before an audience that includes his wife, pulls an Eisenhower. He won't say yes or no. He surprises no one by saying,
one of the things I've been thinking about is next year's election. I'm not going to make any announcement about who the candidate will be.
Springfield, Missouri, World War I veterans of the 35th Division meet for a reunion. And marching along with old artillery mates is former Captain Harry S. Truman. The President, Gene Lee Kids, Warner Pathe's cameraman about the uncomfortable position he's taken to get a good picture. After a 3-mile hike, Mr. Truman reviews the rest of the parade from the sidelines. The reunion has been combined with the world premiere of the winning team, Warner Brothers film about Grover Cleveland Alexander. Mrs. Alexander in the first car is followed by Warner stars Ronald Reagan and Nancy Davis. Riding right behind is Gene Nelson, and there's Virginia Gibson. Later, in Washington, 2 statues are unveiled at each end of the Arlington Memorial Bridge. Gifts of the Italian people, whose Prime Minister, Alcide de Gaspori, presents them to President Truman. At the ceremonies dedicating the statues, designed by Americans, cast in Italy, Mr. Truman says America wants the peace treaty relaxed to restore Italy to full partnership among free nations. And Britain and France join America in an official request to Russia to bring Italy into the United Nations. The get-together of the year sets rumors flying. But General Ike, landing with Mrs. Eisenhower in Washington, where he's greeted by General Collins, says he's not meeting with the President to discuss politics.
I'm here for one purpose only, to talk military affairs with my superiors in the Pentagon and in the other offices of Washington.
At the White House, Ike brushes off political questions, then goes into a conference with Mr. Truman on strictly military matters.
It's President Truman who isn't committing himself about running. Speaking to the veterans of foreign wars, he refers to the GOP campaign, which began with the box supper.
It started last night in a kind of a riot over here at the Georgetown University. I listened to that riot because I was trying to find out what's going on. You know, I couldn't hear a word. I couldn't hear a word, and it must have been a most enthusiastic meeting. I'm glad of that because that means there's going to be quite an interest in this coming campaign this year, and maybe we'll come out with the right result. When the time comes, I'm going to try to tell you what the right result is. That's not an announcement.
To Paris from all over the world come delegates to the new UN General Assembly meeting. Russia's Jacob Malik seems to be in a bad mood, and he has trouble in ducking cameramen. Arriving on the boat train from Le Havre is U.S. Secretary of State Dean Acheson. The American delegation, which includes Mrs. Franklin D. Roosevelt, will press for worldwide armament curbs in a peace drive. Britain's Anthony Eden, back in the Foreign Office, represents the new Churchill government. Princess Elizabeth plays hostess to the Truman family in a full-dress formal reception at the Canadian Embassy in Washington. It's the climax of a hectic 3-day visit to the U.S., in which the royal couple were guests of the president. The princess wears a diamond tiara. She and her husband, Prince Philip, have just made a record 1,600 handshakes, and they just can't wait for dinner. Proves there's a pleasant side to presidential life. as he arrives at Florida's Boca Chica Naval Base for a 3-week winter vacation at Key West. He's accompanied by the base commander, Captain C.C. Adele, and Admiral William Leahy, as he heads for the sun at the winter White House. Now, if he were still a senator, well, Washington's nice in the spring.
Blair House in Washington, Iran's Premier Mossadegh is President Truman's luncheon guest for their first meeting. The Premier is urged to try for peaceful agreement in the quarrel over Iran's nationalization of British oil holdings. And the world hopes that from this friendly get-together, some solution will emerge. In Washington, an old soldier resigns. General Marshall is succeeded by Deputy Secretary Robert A. Lovett in his post as Secretary of Defense. George Catlett Marshall, who has come from retirement to serve his nation again and again, receives a well done from President Truman and a well done from a grateful America.